You're listening to a podcast from the Finnish Football Show.
Yes, it's the Finnish Football Show. I'm Mark Wiltshire. I'm joined again by Keke Mulleri, and we're going to talk now, look forward at the Veikkausliiga 2024 season, which is starting on Saturday the 6th, which hopefully is after you've received this podcast. Because if it comes out after the 6th, we've failed to preview anything. But we're going to try and do something a little bit differently. So hopefully a little bit later, you'll hear from some fans of Finnish football clubs giving their thoughts about their club. But to lead into that, I thought that Keke and I could talk through the first round of fixtures and sort of our thoughts about the Veikkausliiga season. And Keke's got quite an interesting little stat there, so we'll look at that as well. But first of all, let's have a look at those fixtures. So everything starts, Keke, on Saturday the 6th of April.
Yes.
There's one game at 3 o'clock, there's 4 games at 5 o'clock, and there's one at 7 o'clock. That's quite nice, isn't it? When you look at the like the English Premier League, and there's games at sort of every couple of hours all the way through the day. So it starts
7 o'clock as a juicy one, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is. It's a hell of a way to start the season, isn't it? So let's go through these fixtures first of all. We've got the 3 o'clock is Gnistan at home to FC Inter. Then the 5 o'clock fixtures are FC Haka versus VPS Vaasa, EIF Mariehamn against Ekenäs, and then Ilves against Lahti, and SJK Seinäjoki at home to RC Oulu. And then the final game of the evening, the big one, the juicy one that you referred to, is KuPS Kuopio home against HJK Helsinki.
Yep.
So you're right. It was last year, was it not, that HJK and KuPS played each other on the final game after the season split, and now they're starting this season against each other as well.
I mean, they traditionally they're the contenders, aren't they? They're the strong clubs who will be battling it out for the top spot come the end of the season. And so the random fixture computer has pitted them against each other for the first game of the season.
Yeah, that's true. Last year, I guess if we look at the Mestaruussarja, after the season split, the final placings was HJK top on 53 points, KuPS second on 53 points. So it was really, really tight, coming down to I guess, goal difference at the end of it. Then we have VPS Vaasa in third, SJK in fourth, who that was a real slide away after leading the table at summertime. It slipped away to nothing really. Fifth place was Honka, who, to all intents and purposes, are no more. They dropped out of the Veikkausliiga due to financial reasons. You can go back to our episodes at the end of 2023 to hear us talking about that in a bit more detail. And they took the place in the league of their academy side down in the 4th tier, I think, now. Yeah. And then FC Inter, who came 6th last year. But they're on the back of a nice win in the Liga Cup final last weekend. So they'll be... Sorry, Keke.
Yeah, silverware to kick the season off with. Very nice.
It's always good to be a winner before the season's even started, I suppose.
That's it, mate. Yeah.
Then from last year, we had RC Oulu. They finished essentially 7th place. Ilves in 8th. Haka in 9th. Lahti in 10th, Mariehamn 11th, and KTP in 12th place. So Mariehamn stayed up. KTP were relegated. Honka sort of resigned from the league, which made 2 places for the new clubs, which, as I said, was Gnistan and Ekenäs.
Mm-hmm.
Keke, you showed us some stat today about budgets, and this is something that was really interesting for me. Maybe I'll try and flash it up on the screen so that the viewer can see it, and I'll put it in the show notes. This was a post probably on Instagram from our friends over at Buri.
Yes.
And it was to do with budgets.
I can't claim to have done all the research myself. Yeah.
Now those guys are good. If only they would do everything in English, we'd be redundant.
Yeah. No, but yeah, the lads at Buri are brilliant. They do some cracking stuff, really great content. So yeah, I've nicked that off of them, and it for all intents and purposes, it is another league table, but it's a league table that shows you instead of having points in the next to the club, it's got the amount of cash they've got at their disposal for this upcoming season. So yeah, I mean, and it makes some really interesting reading. I mean, we've looked at it before, and it is similar. I mean, you've got, as you would expect, you've got HJK Helsinki. They're up the top with a budget of 2.2 million euros.
That seems big, even by their standards, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, they had a few European games, didn't they, last season? Had a bit of a run in Europe. So
I understand why they've got the money, but to be that much stronger than the next place team is quite something.
Well, exactly that. I mean, next is Cook Scorpio with 1 million euros. So yeah, I mean, HJK's budget is more than double that.
Yeah.
So yeah, perhaps they don't want to finish the league level on points this season.
That's right.
So yeah, they've decided to throw a few quid at it. But yeah, next down the line is Inter Turku with just shy of 1 million with 895,000 euros. Below them is Ilves with 875,000 euros.
And listener, I know what you're thinking. Hang on. They haven't mentioned SJK yet. Aren't they one of the big spenders who try and buy their way to glory?
Well, they're next. They budgeted for 840,000 euros this season, which obviously that you're not a million miles behind Cooks with their 1 million euros, are you? You know what I mean?
No, but I think the point that was made. There was a meeting with the management team. Okay, there was one last weekend that I couldn't get to, but a year ago there was a similar one, and the point that was made is that budget covers the first team and the academy. And so therefore, that's quite a lot of football being covered by that budget. And if they're the 5th highest spenders in the Veikkausliiga and they're running 2 teams with that shows. There was actually an article, I think it was in Helsingin Sanomat, that was shared around on social media recently. It was a long article in Finnish, and I'm way too lazy to work my way through that. But Lady Satu read it, and she said it was actually really good, and it was comparing Kups's strategy and with SJK's and SJK's idea of bringing in younger players into the academy through into the first team and then trading them, selling them on. And a couple of players left for good fees last year, and there's a couple that have gone out on loan with the idea of then being sold at the end of it. And it seems like the production line has sort of started, and this was a strategy that Richie Dorman put in place. As I understand it, he had this strategy in his mind while he was still playing, and he finished 3-4 years ago, and has taken that time to actually get it in place, and now it's starting to pay dividends.
Yeah, I mean the player trading model is operated by many teams across many different leagues, on different scales. And I think, for a club like SJK, if you can operate that player trading model within the Veikkausliiga and then maybe the other Nordic leagues, then good on you. It makes sense.
They got that feeder academy in Ghana as well, this Vision FC, and I saw that 3 young players, Ghanaian players, came over again just last week into the SJK Academy, and I guess the hope is that there'll be 3 more to go into the SJK footballer sausage machine.
That's it. I mean, so 840,000 euros, not to be sniffed at. Just under them is, or your lot, mate, is RC Oulu with 750,000 euros. And then, story of the season last year, Vepsu, VPS Vasa, their budget this year is, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how that compares for last year's, but, you know.
If only Rich was here, he'd probably know that off the top of his head. He'd have the comparison.
Yeah. But I mean, this coming season, they've got 670,000 euros to spend. They're gonna need it because they've got some extra games coming up. They've got a couple of European games they need to play, I believe. So they'll need every cent of that. You've got just below them, you've got FC Hakka, 650,000 euros.
There's a few teams on 650, isn't there?
Yeah, our old friends FC Lahti and Nistan, they're all on 650,000, and then it takes a bit of a jump. EFK Mariehamn on 478,000 euros, and then right down the bottom, Ekenäs on 467,000 euros. And when you sort of compare that, I mean, Kups have got half of HJK's budget, and then poor old Ekenäs down the bottom have got less than half of Kups' budget. So it's
interesting. Gnistan though, that they're the same sort of playing budget as Lahti and Hakka, having just come up. So somebody's, I would say investing, but it's not investing, is it? Is someone is sort
throwing money,
got some money to throw at some Finnish football? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But that will be interesting to see how they get on. I think they had a decent time in the Liga Cup.
No, that's right, and they're trying to build something down there at this stand. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on. But yeah, you know, it is what it is. Do you expect the league table to look much different to that budget table?
No, not really. No, that's right.
Well, you know,
I'm hoping SJK can play above their budget and sort of be third, pushing second.
Yeah, which is why I got so, you know, much to your disdain, why I got so excited about Vepsu last season. Do you know what I mean? Like it was brilliant to see. So
listen, I think I was very even-handed about Vepsu, and we had Vepsu fan Ville on last time and talking about how they did, and I exchanged a couple of messages with him through the season and very magnanimously congratulated him at the end of the season. So you know, I can be a grown-up sometimes.
Yes, perfect.
All right, Keke, I reckon that maybe it's time for us to just shut up and give the listener a break and hand over to some of our listeners and for them to tell us what's going on in their clubs.
Hello everyone. Here is a short introduction to EIF, a club from the small town of Ekenäs that for the second time plays in the highest divisions after more than 90 years. The first time EIF lost all their matches, which means even the first draw in the Veikkausliiga this season would make history for the club. Regarding last season, of course, EIF was the champion of the Ykkönen. The season was like a dream because it started with a promising win against TPS, but eventually at the beginning of summer, things did not look good, with several games without a win, one after each other. Nevertheless, EIF had a remarkable comeback and secure the championship before its last game against Gnistan. regarding the big players who left the club, actually, I must say that EIF kept the whole squad from the last season, except 3 key players who left the club. Tabi Magna, who left to Kotepe, which was a bit surprise and frustration for fans and everyone, which still the reason is unknown. It was claimed because of the personal reason, but that is not clear what was that. And of course the best player of last season for EIF was Jana de Soa, who unfortunately left to Ireland, to Galway United. And the third person who left the club initially was Abdoulaye Kante, who was also a very good player last season for the team. But fortunately, after 2 months, he got back on loan to EIF squad from Ilves. There has been almost several new signing for this season. If I want to highlight 3 key players who kind of excites me for this season from those who just joined the club, I would mention the new goalkeeper, Nicholas Giannakopoulos, a goalkeeper who joined the club from the top division in Israel. The second one would be Kalle Katz from Ilves. I think he's quite a well-known Finnish player, playing for a couple of clubs in Veikkausliiga previously. And the third player is Arjan Kabashi, who joins actually from the favorite clubs of Finnish football shows, that is FC Lahti. So these are 3 players that I would say that they are the most promising players who joined the club. That being said, EIF still has a free spot for a center forward or a forward, because their key forwards like Fofana has been injured, I think, since last season, and also Solomon Oyala, who just recovered from a long time injury, should not be in the best shape. The search for a forward is seemingly going on, and personally hope EIF signs contract with available forwards with reputable CV in the Finnish leagues, such as Spaniard Mika Martinez, who played last season in the Veikkausliiga for Kotepe. But regarding this season, I should say that this season will be challenging for EIF. Of course, EIF has the lowest budget in the league, which affects its player recruitment naturally. Also, the preseason hasn't been promising at all. EIF's style of playing, to my understanding, has been based on keeping ball in their own half or in the midfield, which appears to be risky sometimes, or to me it's a very risky strategy, even last season. And I reckon this is why in some of their games, like the first game in Liga Cup against FC Lahti, although they were 1 goal ahead and had 1 player more, they lost the game 2-1 at the end. There were a few instances last season like this as well. So nevertheless, as an EIF fan, I really hope we managed to keep the place in Veikkausliiga, and I trust this is doable if a good forward will join the club, a good forward with a good technique like as I mentioned already, Mika, or even a more experienced and a little bit older like Mackenzie joined the squad. Also, there is lots of hope, of course, for the key players, like the well-known captain of the team, Kofi Ado, and experienced players like Lucas Kaufman, who could be a game changer for the team. I should say that EIF is a team of actually accomplishing impossible missions, and the other teams should not underestimate this. Last but not least, hope to see many of you in Ekenäs this season. Vi ses in Ekenäs nähtä.
Hello, I'm Max, and I write the Noni It's Jalkapallo blog, which you may have seen on social media, and I've been invited by Finnish Football Pod to share a few thoughts about RC Oulu and what their 2024 season might look like. I think expectations are different compared to what they were last year. So to put this into some context, they had finished 2022 in mid-table, largely steered by the work of Ricardo Duarte, and it seemed like he knew what he was doing. They had done a lot of their signings quite early in the off-season, and a lot of them seemed quite promising in the Liga Cup, of which they got to the final. And then once the season kicked off, they were very steady, and I think by mid-July they were, I think, in around fourth place, but knocking on the door of that top three when the title race threatened to be a three-horse race. And they were also in the semi-final of the Suomen Cup against Ilves, who at the time were not in good shakes. So it was all going well until it wasn't. Otto Limatta, their star attacking midfielder, left to go to Portugal, and then their form started to slowly dwindle, not necessarily because of his departure, but the timing is very much noticeable. They lost the semi-final of the Cup, which led to Ricardo Duarte being sacked and replaced by the duo of Rauno Ohianen and JP Savolainen, the former of whom stays on for this season coming up. And in the end, they finished in 7th, dropping out of the top half on the very last day of the Rundkosarja. And they did get to European playoffs, but once they got there, they were never in with a chance of realistically winning that tournament, especially in the form that VPS were in, which is incredible. So that's kind of the backdrop of this season, and after an off-season in which, once again, they did a lot of their business largely in the first few weeks and months of the off-season, it is a very young team. It's actually the youngest team in the division, which is saying something when you consider that actually a lot of Veikkausliiga clubs are getting younger year on year. But that youthfulness is kind of reflected in the back line of RC Oulu this coming year. So Christian Valencia and Jan Affi, who were their go-to in terms of centre-backs last year, they've both gone. Noah Palas, their national team left back, has also gone alongside Rico Selander, who has played right back and also right centre-back. And having watched a few games in the Liga Cup, I don't quite know where the leadership is going to come from, let alone the experience. It's entirely possible that Callum Ward in goal will not only be tasked with replicating his fine shot-stopping abilities from the previous years, but also given the responsibility of organising the defensive line that's right in front of him. So that's a concern. At the moment, it looks as if Liban Abedid and Elo Jose could be the new go-to centre-back partnership, but we will wait and see. In terms of other new signings that have come in, there's been some really interesting names. So in midfield, they've recruited Alexi Barnanen from HJK, as well as Jake Dunwoody from SJK. And in attack, they've hired Justin Ranix from the New England Revolution, and Marquinhos, who comes from the Brazilian club Retro FC, which is the best name for a football club I've heard in quite some time. Those are the new signings, and one good thing from RSA Oulu's point of view is that they have kept a lot of familiar names that have done well for them over the years. So Jere Gallinen is a really great holding midfielder. I've raved about him a lot on the blog. I think it's entirely conceivable that he could be part of a national team setup. Maybe not in the near future, but at some point in the future. And then you got Niklas Jokelainen, who's become a great attacking midfielder who can drift wide. And I think he is now the new captain for that team as well. And I think he'll bring a good amount of experience and leadership, particularly in terms of Veikkausliiga playing time. And they've also kept Ashley Coffey, who I never know whether to say his name Coffey or Coffee, given the spelling of it. But in any case, very physical number 9, who really impressed in his first year. I think he managed to break the 10 goals barrier, which is a good sign, which is a good stamp of approval in this division. So it's good that they've managed to keep a hold of him. Just a very fun player to watch. Not shy of resorting to what I'm going to call spithousery to ensure that this podcast does not get an explicit rating. And in terms of where I think RSA Oulu will finish, I'm actually recording this on the day that the blog published its complete league table prediction, and I am not as optimistic as I was last year, and I have said that they will finish in 8th. I think that whilst there are some good elements in that squad, it's not as strong or as experienced as it has been. And I think whilst Oulu have very similar problems to previous years, I think a lot of other teams around them have begun to catch up. So watching some of the League Cup games in the past few weeks and months, I think HJK looked really well organised under their new head coach. And I don't expect VPS to have the same sort of season that HJK did in 2023, where after a surprise finish in the top half of the table, they really fell back down to earth. I think VPS will still be in the top half, and I think SJK have enough talent, including former RSA Oulu player Rasmus Karjalainen, to just about stick about in the top half of the table. So I'm willing to be proven wrong. I'll be pleasantly surprised if I'm proven wrong, but I think this might be a bit of a transitional season for RSA Oulu. That said, their first league game this year is going to be against SJK, and I think, given that they're the 2 youngest teams in the division, I think it's going to be a really fascinating and really fun opening weekend fixture.
Hello, it's Ali Manson here, giving you a little dose of HJK and what to expect from the current reigning champions of Finland. Well, where to begin? In the off-season, there was a new manager appointed, Ferran Sabia, and he can't be the manager at the moment because he hasn't got the coaching qualification. So the club appointed a guy who isn't qualified, only in the Veikkausliiga. He is still at the club. There was a period of time when no one really knew what was going to happen or what was going on or whether he was even in the country, but he is on the management team alongside Ossi Virta, who has been an assistant coach at HJK for a number of years, is pretty popular amongst the players and the fans as well. So between the two of them, hopefully they will be setting up the team well and that they've had a good pre-season. There's been a few outgoings that I think are quite noticeable, notably Bojan Radulovic, who scored a hatful of goals, both in the Veikkausliiga and in Europe last season. He will be sorely missed. He's now plying his trade in a relegation battle in the Championship with Huddersfield Town. I did notice he scored a goal at the weekend, but he hasn't really hit the ground running there. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for maybe a end of the English season anyway, loan back to HJK, but I might be clutching at straws there. Another notable absence, or outgoing rather, is Matti Peltola, who really came into his own last season. He's so versatile, playing defensive midfield, centre-back, left centre-back, he's just everywhere. But he's now been snapped up by MLS side DC United, so that is a huge hole to try to fill for HJK. There's been some interesting incomings as well. Notably, I would say Luke Plange from Crystal Palace. Now, he hasn't really forced his way into the Crystal Palace lineup, which is understandable. They are a Premier League side, and he's still young. He's still only 21. But he's been around the block a little bit. He's been at Derby County, which is obviously a big club, Lincoln City, and he's played in Belgium as well. So he's not afraid to ply his trade outside of England. So the fact that he's ended up in Helsinki, I think shows that he's got a good attitude. He's quick, and that's all I know about him. That's all I've seen on YouTube, is that he is fast and has an eye for goal. So he'll be competing for the number 9 spot for the current champions. HJK will start as favourites, as they always do, and they kick off the Veikkausliiga season, or their Veikkausliiga season, against Coop. So it's a really interesting game to start off with. Now, you can't win the league on the first day, you can't lose the league on the first day, but it will be really interesting to see what these two teams give us, or and how they line up against each other, because it could also be like a very, very early psychological blow in the title race, although I might be getting ahead of myself here. I think HJK will be up there, as I said, but I'm also really looking forward to them really trying to make a good go of getting back into Europe. And I mean, they will start in the Champions League qualifiers. I don't think anyone expects them to reach the Champions League, particularly now with the new format. It sort of makes it even harder for smaller teams to make it into the Champions League now. Obviously, they made the Europa League a couple of seasons ago, but I think even that will be pushing it with the current squad. So if they can manage to get into the Europa Conference League, that would provide 6 really fun games in the autumn and winter. I've got my season ticket. I'll be going to the first home game against Lahti in a couple of weeks' time. And yeah, it should be an exciting season. It's been a long pre-season, and I just can't wait to get going.
So it's that glorious time of the year when there's no football yet been played, well, no serious football, and there's hope and expectation and everything is possible, and the reality hasn't really hit home yet. So yeah, a couple of days to the season starts. And what about SJK? So in the pre-season League Cup, then I think there's been steady improvement all the way through. Quite a few experienced players left in the postseason, and it was already a young squad. But from various people have been saying it's a young squad, but not necessarily an inexperienced squad. A lot of the young players already have got at least a season under their belt, so they might have not big numbers next to their ages, but quite reasonable numbers against the number of games that they've played in the Veikkausliiga. So not too concerned about that. We've been a history of bringing through players and at a time when they're ready, bit by bit, and by the end of the season, they look like Veikkausliiga players. And I think we can see from the pre-season, the League Cup, there's been steady improvement all the way through, and players have been brought in where weaknesses are felt to be, or where there's not enough strength in depth. So in defence, where Heretsky left, so we've strengthened that, and Pires looks like a good solid signing, and a good ball player as well, who can pass out from the back. So it's a young side, but I'm not too concerned about that. What else for this season? Expectations. Well, and this is a fans thing. My expectations aren't as high as the coaching staff, as what you wanted. So I'm happy with top table, or top of the bottom table, and steady improvement and interesting games where it's fun to watch. Coaching staff, apparently they want European football, so and to do that through the league, so by winning a considerable number of games. So that sounds good from a fan's perspective. Although quite a few players left in the postseason, SJK have managed to strengthen where they needed to, and a lot of the players who broke through last season are now one season older, one season more experienced, and so we can add to that with new signings and players coming through the academy. Bit of a brainwave to sign Rasmus Karjalainen, who always scores against SJK. So if he's in our team, then it's much harder for him to score against us. But maybe he can tap in a couple of own goals. Let's see. But that should help us a little bit. And then, well, there's Moreno. Oh, Jaime Moreno. So let's see how he goes. He's been banging them in for fun at the moment, but there will be a dip in the season. There must be. No striker scores every game, but he will provide us with the mainstay of goals, 10 and above, hopefully. And then, Bananen looks good. There's hope for this season, and hopefully the worst case scenario, I don't think we'd be in a relegation battle, and I'm expecting us to be in the top table, and if things go really well, then challenging for a medal place, as they say in Finland. So yeah, top 3, but it's hard to know until you've seen all the other teams play.
Huomenta to everyone at the Finnish Football Show and the listeners. This is Jamie, Ilves fan. Here's a quick update on what's been going on in pre-season with Ilves. Before going into that, just a quick recap on last year. Pretty dire league season, finishing in the bottom half, and for the short time towards the end of the season, looking over our shoulder actually and starting to worry about relegation, but it ended really positively. We won the cup, qualified for Europe because of that, and finished the season with a run of 3 wins in a row from what I remember. So overall, it was a great season. Any season that ends with a trophy is always a good one. So moving on into this season then, a lot of positivity based on what's happened there at the end of last season. Also a lot of positivity because it's all new for us this year. There's a new home, which is absolutely massive for us. Tammela Stadium, which was our home until a few years ago, has been renovated and is completed and looks great. I haven't been to any of the pre-season and Liga Cup games yet, but from walking around the stadium and from seeing the pictures, it looks great, and looking forward to being there for the first time tomorrow when the season kicks off against Lahti. Ratana, the temporary home for the last few years, does a job, but it's an athletic stadium, it's not a football stadium, and didn't really create any kind of atmosphere at all, and pretty sure that didn't help Ilves at all. The win percentage but for the seasons we were there was pretty poor. So looking for more positive things, now we're back at Tammela. Also a new manager. I don't know a huge amount about him, but Jonas Rantanen did a great job at Gnistan last year in Ukkonen, and hopefully he can replicate that in Veikkausliiga this year. Moving on to transfers, we've had a couple of good buys. Seydin Ndiaye is a defensive midfielder who played a few games also at centre-back last year, has gone after just one season. He's gone to a club in Thailand. He put in some good performances and was really versatile. So sad to see him go, but wish him well over in Thailand. Also, Calais Katz and Emmanuel Petit has gone to Ekenäs and Mariham respectively. So wishing them all the best. But the main story is about the new faces. There's been a number of young players added to the squad. So very exciting, but I have to see how much game time they'll get. The main theme of the off-season, though, has really been buying experienced players with Veikkausliiga experience. So some of the standouts on the incomers, Juhani Pikkarainen, he was an ever-present in Vasa's amazing season last year. I remember, I think, seeing a little bit of him, very tall, strong defender. He also made the Veikkausliiga All-Star team as well, so it looks like a good buy. And it's promising now that Ilves are looking to buy these types of players who are standouts from other teams. Jonna Vetteli and Anton Popovic, both midfielders, have come from Kups, both midfielders with Veikkausliiga experience and have an eye for goal and are pretty versatile, so hopefully we can keep them fit and add some strength to the midfield. And Rupe Risky as well has come. A bit of an injury problems over the last few years. In fact, in pre-season, I saw a stat that he played his first 90 minutes since 2021. So hopefully we can keep him fit and he can get some goals. What's massively been missing for Ilves over the past few years has been goals. Often in the games, there isn't a massive quality difference between teams, but a team that has someone who's got a cutting edge who can turn those losses into draws and draws into wins by scoring regularly can make the big difference, and we haven't had that, and hopefully we can keep him fit and he can do it. Also, a major bonus is keeping Santeri Harala as well. I'm not sure if anyone's been in for him. I guess Rich will maybe know if there's been any rumours about that, but he signed a new contract for us, and last year he was a massive cut above everyone else. He scored goals, assisted, can play across the whole front line, and was a major factor in us winning the cup and eventually staying up and having a positive end to the season. So he's recently signed a contract for the next few years, which is great. It's been a mixed pre-season, finished top of the Liga Cup group, but lost a few of the friendlies since, so a bit hit and miss, but that's pre-season and probably to be expected with new group of players, new manager, new stadium. So I'm hoping once they all gel together, there'll be a big improvement this year. The computer that does the fixtures has also been kind to us, other than an away trip to Seinäjoki, which I'm hoping to go to and have a beer or two with Mark. We're not playing any of the big boys for the first 7 or 8 games, so there's a real opportunity to pick up some points at the beginning of the season, and hopefully we'll be near the top of the table by the time summer arrives. Because of everything new, it's hard to stick a number on where we'll end up. It could be anywhere, but hoping for a comfortable top half finish, getting through a couple of rounds of the Conference League, and it'd be nice to have another day out of the Cup final in September. So that's all from Ilves, and catch up with you all during the season.
Well, that's it. That's brilliant. Great to hear about all those other clubs from the perspective of their fans rather than us guessing what's going on. Thanks to all of those guys for taking the time to share their thoughts, and good luck for the rest of the season to all of you, apart from Oulu and Vepsu, because because Keke, thanks for being here again for this episode.
You're welcome. Kiitos.
And listener, until the next episode of the Finnish Football Show, thanks for listening. Goodbye.
You've been listening to the Finnish Football Show. You can find us online at finishfootballshow.com. Remember to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening or watching. You can follow the Finnish Football Show page and group on Facebook and also on Instagram. Escape to Suomi on Twitter is now Finnish Football Show on X. And you will find us on Blue Sky at Finnish Football Pod. See the links in the episode description, along with the links to the Finnish Football Show merch stores.